Today I'll be explaining how to quickly create a multiplayer FPS style game on Unity using MLAPI, the new Unity input system, and Cinemachine. I'll include package versions in the description. So we're going to start off by opening up Unity and then creating a new project. I'm going to name mine YouTube tutorial and just make sure that it's a 3D project. So while that project's starting up, we're going to open up our web browser and we're going to install some of the packages that we need for this project. So the first one is going to be the standard Unity first-person controller starter asset that they just released recently. So I'm just going to Google Unity starter asset first person, and it's the very first one that pops up. I think you need a Unity account in order to add this asset, but for me I already added it, so it just says open in Unity. And then next, we're going to need to add MLAPI. So we're going to search MLAPI, and very first link, click this install MLAPI. And we're going to copy this get URL right here, and that's all we need from this page. Then we're going to go into our project, and we're going to go to Window, Package Manager, and hit this plus icon, and then add package from get URL. And then paste in that link that we just added. Then add that. And it'll take a few moments and then it'll install MLAPI. Okay, and then next we're going to hit this Packages tab right here, go to My Assets, select Starter Assets First Person Character Controller, which we just added, and we're going to select Import. Then import again. And then it'll take a few moments to import this, and then right when it's about to be finished importing, it's going to ask us if we want to disable the legacy Unity input system, which we're going to say yes to. And that should restart our process for Unity. All right, and that should be everything that we need in order to get started. Now that we have all of our packages imported and ready to start our project, first we need to open up the example scene we were given with the starter assets. So go to the Assets tab, select Starter Assets, First Person Controller, Scenes, and then double click Playground. And it should open up the starter scene right here. Next, we're going to create a new empty game object and name it Network Manager. And then we're going to add a Network Manager component by selecting Add Component, MLAPI, and then Network Manager. Then we're going to go down and find this Select Transport dropdown, select UNet Transport, and then we're going to the Network Prefabs list, and we're going to add a new Network Prefab. We'll then go back into the Assets tab, select Starter Assets, First Person Controller, Prefabs, and then select the Player Capsule Prefab. And we're going to add a Network Object component to this prefab. So select Add Component, MLAPI, Network Object. And then we're also going to add a Network Transform to this. So same process, MLAPI, Network Transform. And that'll sync up the movements between the client and the server. And then we'll select the Network Manager object that we just created, scroll up to the Network Prefabs, and we're going to drag this new edited Player Capsule Prefab into the Network Prefabs, and then we're going to select Default Player Prefab. And then we can delete the Player Capsule that's currently in the game because a new one will be spawned every time we connect to the client. Then we'll create a new empty game object named Tutorial GUI, and we're going to add a script component of the same name. GUI. We'll double click on the script and open it up. But before we add anything to this script, we're going to go back into our web browser and we're going to search for golden path MLAPI Unity. And we're going to click this, and then on the left-hand side, we're going to select Golden Path Module 1, scroll down about a third of the way, and find this Hello World Manager class right here. We're going to copy this, go back into our tutorial GUI script, and we're going to paste it in, completely replacing our old script. Essentially, this script creates some UI buttons that use MLAPI functions. We're going to edit it a little bit to fit into our project. So first, we'll change the namespace name from Hello World to Starter Assets so we can use Starter Assets. And then we're going to change the class name to Tutorial GUI. To match the name of the game object. Next, we're going to delete the submit new position function because we won't be using that. Next, we're going to add a start function. And this start function is going to have 3 MLAPI callback events that we're going to add our own callbacks to. Next, we'll create the 3 functions we just referenced, starting with handle server started. All we're going to do for handle server started is check to see if we're the host, and if we are, then we're going to call the handle client connected method. For the handle client connected method, all we're going to do right now is check to see if we're the local client, and if we are, then we're going to grab the player object. Finally, for handle client disconnect, we're going to do nothing because we don't need to do anything when the client disconnects in this tutorial. I'm also missing a bracket right here. I don't know when I deleted that, so make sure you add that back in. So save this file and then go back into Unity. And we're going to go back into assets, starter assets, first person, prefabs, and select our player capsule. Double click it to edit the prefab, and we're going to drag in the player follow camera prefab that's located right next to it. And inside of this player follow camera prefab, we're going to drag in the player camera root into the follow slot, into the Cinemachine virtual camera component right here. Then we're going to disable the game object. It's really important that you do this because the way Cinemachine works is the Cinemachine brain will switch to whichever virtual camera has most recently been activated. So when we spawn in a player, we're only going to activate the virtual camera for that client. Next, select the player capsule object and find the player input component and disable that component. It's really important that you do this as well because we only want to have 1 player input active for each client that joins. So we'll reactivate this component when a client joins. Also inside of the player capsule object, we're going to find the starter assets input script, and we're going to disable the cursor locked selected box right here because it's really annoying for testing. Next, open our tutorial GUI script back up and edit the handle client connected function by adding a reference to the Cinemachine virtual camera that we just added to the player prefab. Next, we're going to set the camera's game object to active. Then we're going to get a reference to the player input component that we disabled earlier, and we're going to re-enable it. The last thing that we're going to do in the tutorial GUI file is go up to the top, and we're going to add references to the InputSystem and then also a reference to Cinemachine. Finally, we're going to save the tutorial GUI file and then go back into Unity. And then we're going to go into the player prefab first person controller script. Oops. So right here on the player prefab. We're going to add a reference to MLAPI, then we're going to change the inherited class from mono behavior to network behavior. Then we're going to scroll down to the update function, and we're going to check to see if we're the local player and only update if we are. Then we're going to save this file and then head back into Unity to test. We'll start up the editor and select this host button in the top left. And we should be able to move with WASD. We should be able to sprint if we hold shift. And if we jump, we can jump around and use the mouse to control the camera. So then we're going to close the editor right here and then go to File, Build Settings, Player Settings, and then Windowed Mode. We're going to exit out of that and select Build and Run. Create a new build folder. And then we're going to select that folder right there. And once that's done building, we're going to get a little windowed mode right here. And so we'll be a host on this top one right here. Select host and then move around a little bit and then face the spawn. So this, and then start up in the editor. And select client. And there's the host that we just created right there. I'll select that window again so you can see it. And there we are, and you can see on both of them the network movement. And that's it for this tutorial. I made this tutorial using a couple of other resources from other YouTube channels and also Unity's documentation page. So I'll add links for everything that I used in the description for anyone who's curious. Thanks.